Yeehaw! Howdy partners, and it's Mark here from Not Bored Gaming, and I'm here today to talk about the brand new expansion for Coloma called New Prospects, and it's a rootin' tootin' good time. Yeehaw! That's enough with that stupid accent. I apologise to anybody that I may have offended by doing that really silly accent. But yes, hi folks, welcome back to Not Bored Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark, and today we're going to be talking about an expansion for Coloma called New Prospects, and specifically the new solo mode that comes in it as well, designed by Will Brown, none other than from Hungry Gamer fame. Now, just to put this out there, Will and I are very good friends. I'm going to stay with him in a couple of weeks when I go over to America, but I have tried to be as objective as possible when looking at this solo mode. But let me tell you, it does finally give Coloma the solo mode that it deserves. Not only that, but of course we have the expansion, which is New Prospects, which adds all sorts of new kind of gameplay features to it and really does enhance the game of Coloma. Now, this is currently on Gamefound. The link will be in the description below, and it's already funded. But if you've got any interest in Coloma and you've seen it around, I think it was originally launched in like 2019. Obviously designed by Jonny Cantin, the man, the myth, the legend that is Jonny Cantin, with the art by the Micho, and it's published by Final Frontier Games. Came out originally in 2019. People who played it really like it as a multiplayer game, but the solo that came in the base game wasn't as good as it could be. It was a good way to kind of learn the mechanisms of the game, but it didn't really feel like you were moving forward with anything. However, that's all been addressed now with Will's new solo mode, the Hungry Wrangler, which fits the base game and the expansion as well, and works really well. Absolutely feels like you are playing against another player. However, before we kind of talk about the solo mode, let's just talk about what New Prospects brings to the game. You see, it brings a whole slew of new mechanisms to the game. Now, in the base game, each player started with a deck of 16 cards. And these cards all had various kind of buildings on there that you could build throughout it, and then trigger those buildings, if you landed on the relevant space, etc., and do the actions that were on there. Well, in New Prospects, it replaces that deck with a deck of 20 cards, and these cards work in a slightly different way. You see, they're not just triggered by when you land on the space to trigger that building, but also when you take that action at any point. So you could be given a bonus action for landing on something or get a barrel, and that would trigger that appropriate card. So you've got far more kind of ways to action your cards on your that you start building into your plateau. As well as that, there are these cards that have these kind of little tracks on them, as you can see, and we'll talk about that because that is an integral part of busting in the game. Now, as you may know, in original Coloma, you've got the barker tile in the middle, and if two or more prospectors landed on a space, then what would happen, or the most prospectors landed on a space, should I say, then that would bust, and that would cause you not to be able to take one of the actions. Well, busting has a absolutely strategic and tactical advantage now, because not only does busting, obviously prevent you from doing certain actions on the board, but it allows you to move your expedition markers, that's these on these cards, and also you've got these kind of waterfall tiles, waterfall areas that you're going to put on top of your board as you move along. That's right, there's a brand new kind of addition to your board that you're going to put on top of there. In the original game, you surveyed rivers and you built bridges. Here, you're going to survey waterfalls, and that's a lot more in kind of interactive, if you like, because you get to flip them over potentially at the end. As you go through it and score points for the ones you flipped over that you built in there. You build bridges over them. But there's also, I don't know if you can see on there, there is an expedition track. And every time you bust, you're going to move along this track, and it's going to give you various bonuses. Now, those bonuses are either printed on there. There is a disc bonus as well, or not a bonus, which is when you land on there, you've got to put something in the graveyard. But as you can see, you're going to slot those waterfalls into there, like thus, and it expands the track up to them. So if you move up to that track, when you bust and you've got a waterfall in place and you put it there, so it becomes this real kind of strategy in where you place the waterfalls. The further to the left that you place them here, then the more points you're going to score at the end of the game. But chances are by the time you come to build a waterfall, you're already past that, so you won't get the bonus on it. So maybe you want to fill up the one that you're going to cross next. But there is a bonus on there, so when your expedition tile moves onto there, or token moves onto there, when you bust, you gain the bonus that's on there. And on that particular one, on that waterfall, it allows me to do the wagons action there as well. So that's kind of, you know, a key new mechanism within the game itself of these waterfalls. There are some other changes in the game as well. So if you remember in the original Coloma, if you played it, there was a shootout and you just totaled up the number of outlaws that were in there and the number of dudes collectively you had on there, and if you had more dudes then you would win. That changes now. So the shootout, going row by row in there, every dude that's on that gets to shoot one outlaw, and you get a VP for that when you shoot those outlaws. And then at the end of it, if there are outlaws standing, you've lost. So it's not just a case of matching the numbers, but you're actually kind of scoring points for having dudes on the map and placing them positionally on that shootout area, so you get to have a shot at the dudes first. So that may mean that you have to take a line with less dudes on there in the shootout area, just to ensure that you get the VPs from actually shooting the bad guys, which of course means that you could have less dudes on there and come second or third when you come to winning the shootout, or come second or third when you come to losing the shootout. So that's another major change there in how the shootout works. Another thing as well is, if you remember on Coloma, they've got this fancy little Barker tile here, this magnetic thing that spins around onto the board. The actions on this have changed. So if you remember on the original Coloma, you had on this particular action here, if it was up and you were on that, it was a signpost which directed you to take the action. I think it was previous to it, or in front of it, etc. I think it was previous to it. Now it's got a barrel on there, so you get to take a barrel instead if that's available for you. So there's all these kind of little changes which have just kind of enhanced it. You get these new tiles that you go through. You get a selection of new tiles that are double-sided, so you get 1848, 1849, 1850s printed on the board. As you know, it takes place over 3 years with 5 rounds per year, but these add a nice element of variability in there as well. There are a number of tiles that come in the expansion, which means that you can randomly or choose whichever ones you want to play. Finally, on the wagons map, on the main map itself, if you like, on there, instead of what's printed on there, you get these tiles to put on there. Now you're going to put 4 out. I think it comes with 6, maybe more, and they're double-sided. And what happens is, if you land on one of the towns with these on it, and what will happen is you can choose either the left or right action. If you pass through it, you just use the left one. If you land on the town, you choose the left or right action. The left action's always going to be 4 meeples, and the right action is going to be various actions, be that build, etc. And then you flip it over if you choose that right action, which means next time you go past there, you're going to get 2 dudes, or you get to take the action that's on the right hand side if you land on it. So that's a nice element of variability. You're not just all vying for the same thing there, which is really, really cool. So those are kind of the core changes to it. I say the main things are the waterfall board, which is really, really interesting, and I like that. It adds a good level of agency towards kind of what you're in your game, and whereas before you didn't really have that level of expedition, you're just surveying rivers and building bridges. Here you're surveying waterfalls, you're building bridges over those waterfalls, but you've got the expedition track which moves along there, which grants you various bonuses, and they can be kind of points in game depending on how you do it. They can be additional horses, they can be end game points, and depending on what waterfalls you put on there, of course you get the bonuses that are on there as well. So some really nice additions, and again, one of the main things is the new deck of cards and the way that you play those cards as well. So those are kind of all the changes to how Coloma plays now, as opposed to how it did play. And trust me, I don't think I would ever play Coloma now without the new prospects expansion. What it does is it takes a very, very good game that was very good to start off with and absolutely enhances it and gives you just more gameplay, more agency. You know, even there's another change, such as on the when the Barker tile moves around the rondel. Before, when it landed on an event, it was optional as to whether you took that event. Now you have to take that event if you can. So if it lands on space number 5, I think before you could exchange 1 gold for 3 coins. Now what happens is, if you've got a gold, you have to exchange it for 3 coins. So you've got to think about, do I spend that gold because my gold at the moment has more more value if I spend that gold before it gets there, before the gold all stocks up again from the minecart. So it has more value. So I get more value for spending that gold now, or do I just let it go for 3 coins? And that's a really, really nice kind of touch. So everything they've done is kind of just inching into making Coloma more of a rounded game. So that's kind of the changes on there. As I say, if you've got Coloma, then you're really going to want to get New Prospects, because it adds just a ton of additional gameplay features and mechanisms that make the game more and more interesting. So that's, you know, if you've got Coloma, go out and get it. If you never had Coloma, watch some of the wonderful videos that are out there. Rado's got them, Purple Moose Plays, Hungry Gamers obviously got them out there. Some really good playthroughs on Coloma. What I do like about Coloma is the fact that it's light enough for people to learn how to play it relatively quickly, but it provides enough variability and challenge in there that you can have a really, really good time. The rounds zip by. You know, there's not massive amounts of AP on this as you're deciding what to do, because there are only effectively 5 spaces on the rondel that you can go. Yeah, give or take, because depending on where the Barker tile is, but effectively 5 spaces on there that you can go. And the addition of that bus mechanism actually having a benefit for you now is huge, because you're going to want to tactically and strategically kind of plan when you're going to bus. So yeah, that's about the expansion. However, let's talk about the solo mode. So when we talk about solo modes for games, I'm a big believer in the game should have the level of solo mode that the game deserves. And therefore, if you've got a big and heavy crunchy game, for example, I'm currently playing through Lords of Ragnarok, and that's got a solo mode by Adam Kopinski and David Turksey and Javi Bordez, and it's a big, heavy, crunchy game, and it's got a really involved solo mode. I don't mind that, because the game deserves it. What I don't want it doing is kind of skipping out on stuff. So when it came to Coloma, the original one, the solo mode in the base game that came originally, it was perfunctory. It allowed a solo player to play the game, but it didn't really have that kind of interplay. You never felt like you were playing against an actual player. Well, I'm pleased to say that what Will Brown's done here is just utterly fantastic. He's taken on some of the concepts of that solo mode and expanded them and given this other player, this Hungry Wrangler, an actual personality, which is really, really important. You feel like you're playing against another player. There are difficulty modifiers in the game as well, depending on where you put a marker on the barrels when the Hungry Wrangler is going to take a barrel. But almost every action in the game that you take, the Hungry Wrangler can take those actions, and that is an absolute stroke of genius by Will. There's no shortcuts taking place here. There's only concessions made when they're absolutely necessary, and they are minor and few and far in between. But in reality, what you're going to do is you're going to play effectively against another player, and the solo mode's been designed as well that you can also put it into a game with up to 4 players as well. I think it takes players up to 4, so 3 other players and the solo and the Hungry Wrangler, which is great for, you know, if you're playing with a couple of people, you can then kind of add that into there, add the Hungry Wrangler into there and have a 3-player game, and it does play exactly the same, more or less like 99.9% exactly the same as another player. It slots wonderfully into kind of how the game plays. Now, the Hungry Wrangler, when you play as a solo gamer, there's 2 things that are going to go on the board. First of all, you got 3 things, should I say. You have your Meeple and your Pioneer, you have a Hungry Wrangler Pioneer, and you've also got Buster the Pioneer as well. Now, Buster is kind of an addition that's in the game. It's just kind of a helps the bust mechanism when it goes on the board, and again it helps in the solo game as well, because, you know, having 3 pioneers on the board really does mean that sometimes, you know, you're going to be in a position where Buster is going to make you bust, and that can be in your advantage. You know, you can kind of plan it out, or it could be a slight disadvantage for you. It comes with a brown Buster Meeple. I've completely misplaced mine, so I'm just using a 3rd-player Meeple as Buster. And what you do at the beginning of every round, you're going to flip over. Buster's got a deck of 5 cards. You're going to flip over 2 cards, and they're just the 5 cards that relate to the 5 spaces on the rondel. And you know that on those two spaces, Buster is not going to land on them. So then you place your meeple on the board, and that obviously corresponds to the what actions you want to take. And then you're going to roll a dice for Hungry Wrangler and place that wherever they go. So 1 to 5 is on all of the spaces. 6 is in the space, I think it's counterclockwise to where the Barker tile is. So let's see. On a roll of 6, place a Hungry Wrangler onto whichever side currently contains directly counterclockwise to the Barker tile. So you're placing it just behind the Barker tile. That adds certainly an element of randomness to it, but that's good because you know, you don't want to have that ability to totally understand what the Hungry Wrangler is going to do. So there is an element of randomness that adds there. So you're going to play them out, place them out, and then you're just going to take your turn as normal, obeying all of the rules that are in the base game and in New Prospects. Then you're going to take the turns for the Hungry Wrangler, and they're ever so slightly different. So let's talk about them. I'll show you the board from above, and we'll talk about the various moves that Hungry Wrangler can make. Okay, so here you can see I'm kind of part way through a game. Hungry Wrangler is in red, I'm in green, and here's Buster's meeple here. Hungry Wrangler's currently beating me on a score of 17 to 13, kind of after the first round and the first couple of goes on the round. So let's take you through exactly how the game works then. So we're going to start off, and the first thing we're going to do is we are going to move the Barker tile. Now it's currently on position 1 here, so we're going to move that round to position 2. Then we're going to activate this bonus here. So I get a gold nugget from the bank, and Hungry Wrangler is going to get 2 because they've got a tent on here. So they get all the same bonuses. So there we go. So they've got those. Now suddenly, which is good, they've got like 2 gold nuggets now, which, you know, obviously gives them more power. But it now means that gold nuggets, it's not so good, should I say, gold nuggets are only worth 2 coins each when you spend them. So the more come out of the bank, then the less it's worth there. So that's the first thing that happens there. We move that round and triggered that event. All of the events are mandatory if you can take them. Remember that. That's a new rule that's in the expansion. Right, so now let's have a look at what we do. Then we take Buster's cards. So let's say there are 5 cards, and we're going to put these out, 2 of these out. So we know that when it's Buster's turn, he's not going to go on space 5 or not going to go on space 4. So there and there. So that gives me, if I wanted to bust and move my expedition marker, which, you know, I'm not too sure I do at the moment. Sorry, that should be there because that's there. I may want to actually, because what I could do is get a wagon action which will allow me to move down there. So maybe we do want to bust, but that gives me too many. So here's what we'll do. I've got plenty of coins, I've got plenty of people. I could survey a waterfall, and I could also, yeah, I think we can do that. 1, 2, yes, let's do that. So what I want to do is actually, I can't here, because that is taken over that, so I can't do that. I could build, I could do work there. I've got no work actions I want to take, so we're going to go on for the for up here. So we're going to place somebody in the gunfight to try and make sure we win that. Place a tent down somewhere so I can get double bonuses or put them onto the map and gain a tent as well. Now for Hungry Wrangler, what we're going to do is we're going to roll the dice and see where they place their meeple. They're going to go on position 2, which is where the Barker tile is, just there. So they're going to take that particular action, and Buster is going to go where? Position 3. Phew, so there we go. Nobody busts this time. So you're going to take your turn as normal. You know, here I would put dudes on the map, so maybe I want to fill this line here. But he's going to go, there's only 4 up there so far, but if barrels get taken, there's more. All right, so yeah, I've got plenty of dudes here, so we're going to fill this line up here. So I know I'm way above the outlaws when it comes to the shootout. And I know I'm in position to get first place if we beat all the outlaws. I get to put a tent down. I have a tent, so let's put a tent on a tile that's going to grant me something. We're already on there. I've got a tent on there. Let's do that, get me some more cards to my hand. And I get to take a tent into my tavern there. So that's my turn done. Now, we have the Hungry Wrangler, and they're currently on the Barker tile, and that's pretty good because I can tell you what the Barker tile does when they land on the Barker tile. So they're going to try and take both actions, basically. If they can't take any actions, what they're going to do is they're going to move up on their expedition track, or on their cards here. If they play cards, they're going to move up on their expedition track. 1 for the common action, 2 for the boom action. So basically, if they couldn't do any of those actions, they would be in a position where they'd be moving up here and starting to get to the end where they can start to score all sorts of points. But the Barker tile is good because it tells me the kind of the 6th action in the game. Okay. So the purchase horses. So if all horses have been purchased, purchase tents. The hungry wrangler always spends their books before gold. So they get to purchase horses, and what can they do? They can spend 2 to get 2 horses or a tent, and that's an infinite number of times. So they can do. So we've got 3 horses. That means they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've got another 2 they can do. So they can spend 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, and get their full horses. This means when it comes to their wagon action, they can essentially, they can move 5 spaces on the board, which is fantastic. They've still got stuff there, so they can purchase tents if they want. They don't have any tents, so let's do that. So it's 2 for tents as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're going to get 2 tents as well. So suddenly, on that singular action there from the top, they've got a number of horses, and they have, there we go, a number of tents as well. That's the common action, and then on the boom action, it's a barrel here, and they always gain a barrel. And what you do with a barrel is, again, you're going to roll a dice. So we roll that dice, and here we go, it's 3. So you count from here, 1, 2, 3. They're going to take this one here, and they action it straight away. So they're going to gain 2 gold pieces. Oh man, there we go. We're going to replace that, yeah, and that's what's going to happen there. Now, if they rolled that's 1 to 4 counting from there. If they rolled a 5, it's from there. If they roll a 6, they take it from Wednesday's gold pieces. They take the barrel from underneath and move it 1 space to the left. Of course, they've taken a barrel there, and that's got 2 outlaws, so we're going to add 2 outlaws into there. So there we go. So suddenly, the game's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outlaws in there. We've got 8 of our dudes here for shootout, so we're currently okay. But the more barrels get taken, the more they're going to work. Right, so that's kind of the Barker tile action. So what I'm going to do, rather than going through all of them on the board, I'm going to talk through these while I show you the board and the Hungry Wranglers actions. So we start off in space 1 here, which is the workday action. And what will happen is they would draw 2 cards from here into their face down pile, basically. And then they would also gain 1 gold from the bank as well. So they would do those 2 actions there. So a slight change on kind of our actions, on what we would perform, but it works better for here. They're building up that stack of cards there, and they're gaining gold. So on to site 2, which is survey a waterfall or a bridge. So if they've got any open spaces on their board here for a waterfall, they build a waterfall on the next space they're due to pass. So for example, they're further along now, if they were here, they would then spend the relevant stuff from here. So it's, let me see that right, 3 dudes and 4 coins to build a waterfall. They would give that there. They would take a waterfall from wherever from here, basically, and then they would put it onto the next space they're going to pass. If they passed all their spaces and there's gaps to the left, they're going to put them there. And of course, they get the bonuses underneath that as well. And if they built all their 4 waterfalls, they instead build a bridge over the waterfall, and you build the next bridge with gold. So you're going to go down the bridge stacks here, and you put 6 unique bridges out there at the beginning of a game. They're going to do them and build those bridges as they go. So they're always really hungry. If they get that action, really hungry, they're always really hungry to try and advance as much as possible. They don't benefit from any scoring criteria on the bridge, but they will score 4 points per bridge at the end of the game. And then for the boom action here, they're going to perform the common action again. So they're going to do that again if they can. So they have the opportunity to build 2 waterfalls, or a waterfall and a bridge, or 2 bridges, if they have the resources to do that. And that is site number 2. So now we move them on to number 3, which is this site here, and this is build a town building. So what they're going to do is they're going to build the top card from their pile of buildings, obviously using the resources they have to do that as well. And when they build a card, they're going to place it face up next to their board, and they're then going to place a posse, so one of their dudes, onto a map. Onto the map, so let's take one from here, onto the map on the lowest numbered side that they don't have one, so that would be number 1 there. Now posses, every time it moves around to there, they're going to score points for that. One posse gets 1 victory point, 2 posses 2 victory points, 3 posses 3 victory points. So they have a way of racking up points as they go around the game as well. And if all spaces have 1 posse on there, then you start again from the lowest numbered space. Then on the boom action, if the gold nugget is near the Hungry Wrangler's deck, which is there, perform the common action of this site, and then you move the gold nugget to then be near the hotel. So I haven't put the hotels out here, but there's hotel cards that go on there. If the gold nugget is near the hotels, you build a hotel and then you move it back to there. So you're constantly building between hotels and their kind of standard cards as well. And if the gold nugget is near the hoedown, build a hoedown and then move the gold nugget to be near the Hungry Wrangler's deck. So yeah, sorry, when you build a hotel, you move it to be near the hoedown. Hoedowns are specific cards. They have game-changing, but not game-changing, but very important abilities on there when you build a hoedown. And they're again a new addition in the new Prospects expansion. So now we're into the moving wagons on the frontier, which is this part of the map here. And of course this is really important throughout the game as you get to kind of move around the various boom towns, take the bonuses, put tents on there and stake your claim, etc. Well, Hungry Wrangler's going to do it ever so slightly different. You see, in the game, and this comes in the core game, you get these location tiles. Here we go, and you're going to shuffle these up at the beginning of the game and place them kind of face up there. And what you can do when it takes their action is they're going to use their required number, move their required number of spaces towards that particular place. So they've got 5 horses. So they've got the maximum, 6 horses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got 6 horses. They're going to move the maximum number of spaces towards Hangtown, which is down here. And they're going to stop on Hangtown as well. And they're going to collect all the bonuses on the way. So 1, 2, that gives them 2 meeples. There we go. 3, 4, another 2 meeples. There we go. And 5, and they always stop on a boom town, and they're always going to take the bonus action. And there we go. That is actually a build action. If he's got a hammer or a saw, they will build a building from their hand. So there we go. They're going to build a building. Normal costs. Here we go. So a building is going to be 2 meeples and 2 coins. So 2 dudes. There we go. And 2 coins. Well, they haven't got that. They can use gold instead. There we go. 2 dudes, 2 coins. Coins currently worth 2. Gold is currently worth 2, and they get to build this other building here. So they've suddenly got 2 on there now, and each of those cards is going to score them 6 points at the end. So we're going to flip that over now, and that tile now has either only 2 meeples when you land on it, or you get to put a tent down. If they stop at the location taken on their token, which you know it was, Hangtown, you're going to put that with their barrels that they've collected and got face down, and they're going to get scored at the end of the game, and also reveals the next location token. And if they have no more location tokens in their stack, they'll move towards Coloma. When they get to Coloma, they instantly score 10 points, and then if they get that action again after they've done that, they're going to score 3 victory points every time they would take a wagon movement. And here we go, and on that action they're going to perform that again. So they've got the ability, depending on how many horses they've got, to really start moving around this board and really start racking up some significant points and resources. So Hungry Wrangler by name, Hungry Wrangler by nature. So now, and here we are on the 5th position on the board now, and this is the Settle Frontier and Defend Coloma. So what they're going to do is they're going to place dudes in a good gunfight depending on how many they have here. Now, if you're winning the fight, then you're going to place them into the smallest space available. So we're currently winning here, so therefore that would place, there we go, 1 on there because there was a space on 1. If you're losing the fight, they will place it onto the biggest space available. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 5, so 1 would be where they could place it anyway. And then what you do is they place dudes into their hotels and scoring VP for them. Again, I haven't got the hotel deck set up, apologies for that. But hotels, you're going to put your dudes on those maps to fill those hotels, and you're going to get VPs for them. They're going to place tents on the map if available. So if they're here, so which they are at the moment, they're in Hangtown. We can see that there is a coloured area next to it. So other than Coloma, you can place tents in frontier areas around it, and what you do is you would, starting at the place called, place tents, place it in the northernmost space available from the boomtown. So there's nothing around here apart from there. They're going to place a tent onto there, and that one tent is going to score them 3 victory points at the end of the game. If they were to place it, if they weren't in a position here where they could place tent, they would place it onto the Barker tile here, and they would place tents onto sites without one, starting to place clockwise from the Barker tile. So if the Barker tile, I don't know, is here, they would place a tent just there. Obviously, it's only 1 tent per action. Then they're going to pick a tent. What you've got to be careful of, though, is in the final year, so in year 3, you don't place tents on sites that you're not going to be able to action. So if you don't place them behind the Barker tile, it's the last time it's going to be going around there. The boom action, exactly the same as it is for us. They are going to draw a tent and put it onto their board. So you do that over 3 rounds, 5 turns each round, obviously manipulating your points and your scores and the boards, etc., making sure you've got your expedition track moving up, making sure that you're collecting your gold and getting your dudes and building your buildings and getting your hotels and surveying waterfalls and bridges, etc. And then you would score the game the same as you would in your own under the standard rules. For the Hungry Wrangler, they're going to score tents on a map, which is over there, victory points on buildings, hotels and the hoedown, 10 points for every collected location token. So that's these. So if they're zipping around the map and doing these locations, that's 10 points for those. 3 points for every barrel, 4 points for every bridge, points for every completed waterfall as marked on the player board. So that's these points here. So when you put a waterfall on there, there's some gold points underneath it. They would get them at the end of the game. 1 VP for every 3 books that they've got. A VP for unused resources, gold tents, dudes and horses. There again, there's a modifier here. It's 1 VP for 1 resource on hard, 1 VP for 2 resources on normal, and 1 VP for 3 resources on easy. And let me tell you, the Hungry Wrangler, he's a bit of a bugger. As I say, hungry by name, hungry by nature. And this dude likes to go around the map and likes to try and rack up as many points as possible, really cause some tremendous buggeration and tarnation to you as you're trying to successfully complete Coloma with the most points possible. And that is how you play, in a very brief overview, the solo mode, the new solo mode, the Hungry Wrangler of Coloma, designed by Will Brown. That's the solo mode is designed by Will Brown. Of course, Coloma itself is designed by Jonny Cantin. And there we go. So that's everything you need to know about Coloma, new prospects, and the Hungry Wrangler solo mode designed by Will Brown, which you can get in the campaign, which is launched on Kickstarter already, successfully funded. But if it's of interest to you, then go and check it out. Look, this is difficult for me because I don't like giving Will compliments. But what he's done here in terms of this solo mode, as I say, he's taken some of the core concepts from the original one, really expanded on those and done exactly what a lot of people want from a solo mode. It's something that has relatively little overhead. Yes, there's a few additional rules, and I'm sure the game will come with some player aids for that. Of course, this is all prototype stuff that I have here. Not the Coloma board, but all the new prospect stuff is prototype stuff. I'm sure it'll come with player aids just to get you used to those rules. But once you've played a few rounds and you've been on every space that they move to in terms of the rondel and the Barker tile, then you kind of understand what they're doing and how they're doing things. So the need to constantly reference the solo rules as you move forward gets less and less and less. And I think, again, that's really important. You see, Coloma is not a heavy game. It's a very fun game. Don't get me wrong, I think this is a great game for people who like a challenge and also people who aren't really kind of involved in board gaming, and maybe it's not a good way of introducing a slightly different type of board game to people who aren't familiar with it. And the solo mode absolutely now mimics that. It's not as simplistic as it was. Slightly more complicated than it was, but nothing untoward. And it's been designed in such a way that it feels wholly part of the whole Coloma experience. It feels like a natural solo mode rather than something that was potentially added on to give one player viability as it was previously. So it's a huge success, and a big pat on the back to Will here. As I say, you know, take the caveat that Will and I are very good friends, but irrespective of that, if you look at kind of Rado's videos and Carl Rahnkamp's over at Purple Moose Plays, who's got an excellent playthrough of solo. So if you want to see the game kind of play out solo, then go and check out Carl's video. The praise is there for the solo mode because it hits that spot. It's exactly what you want from a solo mode. And it doesn't add longevity to the game. There's not massive amounts of decision trees, etc. It's landed here. These are the actions they're going to do. And generally, these are all the points they're going to score and all the resources they're going to take as they land on these spaces. It never really feels like it's cheating on you, and that's kind of a good thing. I think the only thing that you could say about it is, depending on those dice rolls, because it is dependent on dice rolls as to where it's going to go, it could potentially have similar actions again and again and again. That's happened a couple of times in my games where it's gone on a space and it can't take the actions that are on there. So instead of doing that, what it does is it moves along its expedition track on the waterfall board, which means, you know, it can move up to 3 spaces sometimes on those if it can't do the actions, and that's happened a couple of times in a round for me. Before you know it, it's zooming up that expedition board. But then, of course, the dice eventually evens itself out. But that is the only thing, and I think there's no other way of doing it without adding an additional layer of complexity to the game. So, you know, once you understand that there is that kind of randomness, it's not necessarily mitigable, but you understand why it's there, but it doesn't really affect the enjoyment of the game at all. In fact, it adds to it because it requires that you're going to change your strategy, because suddenly what's happening is the Hungry Wrangler is taking a very different direction to where you thought it was going to go, and you know, it might be hitting this space where it's moving up the expedition track, and you've got to look at their expedition track and think, right, bloody hell, how do I counter what's going to happen there? What can I do for that? Is it going to get another waterfall? I really want that waterfall. Do I have to get the resources now to build that waterfall if it gets a roll that makes it do that again? But other than that, and I say for me, that's a positive more than anything. Just it creates some dynamism in the game. Other than that, it's an absolutely brilliant solo mode. I'd like to see more solo modes come from Will for some of the games that are out there. I think, you know, taking an existing solo mode and building on it and creating something wholly new, and that's the main thing as well, that's something that fits the game, is obviously where his forte lies. Let's face it, you know, he doesn't have many other skills, so he may as well just concentrate on this area. Sorry, Will. So there we go. That's my complete overview of Coloma and Coloma New Prospects and the Hungry Wrangler solo mode, which is all out on Gamefound at the moment. Go and check the link in the description. Go and click on it if it looks of interest to you. For me, I think it's a fantastic game. I played Coloma back in the day when it first came out. I'm more than happy to get it to the table now with this new solo mode because it delivers everything I want from Coloma. If you want to check out some other videos, go and check out Carl Rahnkamp's Purple Moose Plays. He's got an excellent solo playthrough on there. The rules have changed ever so slightly since he did that, so it's not necessarily the rules at the state they are now, but it gives you a wonderful overview on there, and Carl makes some fantastic videos, so that's Purple Moose Plays. So there we go, partners. Thank you very much for joining me on this video through Coloma New Prospects and the Hungry Wrangler solo mode. Go and check it out on Gamefound. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, check out our other videos, and one final thought, it's a solo channel. If you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.